I sat at the bar, nursing my beer as I contemplated the state of my life and my marriage to Andrea, when I saw him walking toward me in the large mirror in front of me. He looked rather odd for this area. A tall, lanky man with chiseled features, a square jaw with just a hint of a 5 o'clock shadow, and squinty eyes that looked like they had seen just a bit too much sun. There was something about his facial features that seemed familiar somehow, but I just couldn't place it. He wore a pair of blue jeans, topped with a white shirt, a brown vest, and a floor-length duster. He wore a battered old Stetson along with a pair of cowboy boots. I could even hear the jingle of spurs as he walked. Who wears spurs these days? I asked myself. Overall, he looked like a character right out of an old Western. The only thing missing was a gun belt and a six-shooter, but something told me he had one squirreled away somewhere. He stepped up to the bar stool next to me. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. I nodded my head and noted his accent, which seemed to suggest he came from somewhere down south. "Please do," I said. He smiled and took a seat. "Name's Peace," he said, extending his hand. "Justice O. Peace." I shook his hand. "Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Peace," I said. He smiled and nodded his head. "Please just call me Justice," he said. "Mr. Peace was my pa." I chuckled at that. "And you must be an Amos Jones," he added. How did he know that? I asked myself. "Yes," I said. "How did you know that?" "You just look like an Amos Jones," he said in that drawl of his. "I can tell a lot by looking at a man. Take that feller sitting in the back," he added, nodding at the mirror in front of us. I saw the man he was referring to, a balding, middle-aged man nervously looking around as he nursed his drink. "Now that's a fellow with the weight of the world on his shoulders," Justice said. He shook his head once as he clucked his tongue. It was a gesture I had seen my grandfather make many times growing up. "Shame of it is," Justice added. "It's all his own doing. Too bad, really." He looked back at me. "What are you drinking?" he asked. I shrugged my shoulders. "Beer," I said. He got the bartender's attention with a nod of his head. "I'll have a beer and get whatever it is my friend here wants," he said, pulling out a small roll of cash. "My treat," he said, looking back at me. I thanked him and watched as he pulled out a pack of cigarettes. "Mind if I smoke?" he asked. I had quit smoking a few years back, when Andrea and I first got married, and was at the stage where the odor of cigarette smoke bothered me, but I decided this was no time to be unfriendly. I shrugged my shoulders. "Go ahead," I said. He pulled out a cigarette, then pulled a wooden match from a box in one of his pockets. I couldn't help but notice it was his last match. He scraped the match on his jeans the way I had seen in all those old westerns and lit up. Surprisingly, the cigarette gave off no odor whatsoever. He put the burnt match back in the box and offered me a cigarette. "No thanks," I said. "I quit a few years ago." "Smart move," he said. "These things will kill you. I think you might like these, though. Rolled them myself. Spent years getting the blend just right. Go on. I know you want one. It's okay. One won't hurt you." At that moment, I found myself actually craving that cigarette. I thought I was past that point, but something about his offer appealed to me. I nodded my head and accepted his offer. He smiled as I put the cigarette in my mouth. "There you go," he said, opening his matchbox. I thought he had no more matches, but apparently I was wrong. He pulled out what seemed to be the same match and lit my cigarette. He blew out the match and put it back in the box. It was still the only one he had. How did he do that? I asked myself. I took a long drag off the cigarette and was surprised that I didn't start coughing. It didn't taste like any cigarette I had ever smoked before, and I found myself starting to relax. Justice smiled and nodded his head as the bartender brought us our beer. "Ain't nothing quite like a beer and a good smoke with a friend to finish the day, is there?" he asked. I had to agree. He lifted the beer and we clinked our glasses together. "To friendship," I said. He nodded his head. "Friendship," he repeated. "So, what do you do, Justice?" I asked. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, he said. I pretty much go where the wind takes me. Mostly, though, I help fellas who've been done wrong. Fellas like you, for example. What do you mean? I asked. Well, I know you work hard, and you're damn good at what you do, he said. I don't understand all that newfangled tech stuff you do, but I happen to know you're the best. He was right about that, I thought. I'd been doing computer and IT work for as long as I could remember. Right now, I work as a field service technician, taking care of our clients' networks and servers, and often helping end users with desktop issues. It was good money, and I made sure everything I did was done right the first time. The only downside was the periodic trips I had to make out of town. I also happen to know that you put in an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. You don't cut corners and you never cheat, he told me. I began to wonder if this guy was some kind of private investigator. You always put your family before yourself and always think of your pretty little wife. But something's gaining on you, Amos, isn't it? What's gaining on you? Wait, let me guess. It's your wife, isn't it? Yes, it is, I said. How do you know that? Like I said, he told me. I can tell a lot about a man just by looking at him. How long has your wife been cheating on you? I shrugged my shoulders. I don't know, I said. I've suspected for a while now, but I found out last night when I got home. Tell me about it, he said. I told him everything. How Andrea and I met, fell in love, and got married. How she worked as a secretary for a law firm that used our company for their IT services, and how I met her while on a service call. We dated for a while, fell in love, and got married. That was almost 5 years ago. Then she started to change. It was just little things at first, but over the last year she had become a total bitch about everything. I wondered if she was having an affair, but I couldn't afford to pay for a private investigator. A few days ago, I was sent to a remote site in the next state and finished up a day early, so I thought I'd surprise Andrea by coming home and taking her out on an unannounced date. It turned out I was the one who got the surprise. It sounds so cliched. I drove up to our 2-story house and found a strange car in the driveway. I parked on the curb and went into the house. I could hear them screwing in the master bedroom upstairs. I went upstairs and saw her lying on her back, undressed, with a man I didn't recognize between her legs. He had just finished and was pulling away when I reached the bedroom door. I could see the evidence of what they had done, and it felt like a punch to the gut. He turned to look at me, and I recognized him. Roscoe Jennings, her boss at the law firm. He was a fairly powerful attorney and was well respected in the community. He was also much bigger than me in every respect, and I knew he could mop the floor with me in a fight. They laughed as I slowly made my way back downstairs. I sat on the couch and could hear them talking, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. They came downstairs after a few minutes. Roscoe grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. He stopped just before he left and looked at me. "Hope you don't mind, but I helped myself to a beer," he said, laughing. I said nothing in return. Andrea sat on the couch and looked at me. "What are you doing at home?" she asked. "You were supposed to be gone for another day at least." Wow, I thought. Not even a hint of remorse. "For starters, I live here. I got done a day early and thought I'd surprise you," I said. "Looks like I'm the one who got surprised." "Why, Andrea?" I asked. "Aren't I enough for you? Don't I treat you with love and respect?" "Why?" she asked, laughing. "That's simple. He's got a 9-inch Johnson and he knows how to use it, that's why. And he's rich and powerful. And available. Not like you, always working, going off to take care of clients." "He's also married," I said. "With kids." She shrugged her shoulders. "So?" she asked. "Look, now that you know about us, there's no reason for me to hide it anymore. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to have Roscoe over here more often from now on. Sometimes he'll stay the night. Sometimes he won't. He might have some friends join him. It doesn't affect us in the least. You're still my husband, and I expect you to perform your duties. When Roscoe comes over, you'll be expected to watch. Of course, your spot in the bed is now his, so you can move into the guest room. I'll expect you to treat him with respect and do as he says." I just looked at her. Surely she wasn't serious about all this. "You can't be serious," I said. "This is my house. You're my wife. I won't stand for it." She smirked. "That's right. I'm your wife," she said. "And this is my house, too, and I can have anyone here I want. You can either put up with it or get a divorce, but I promise you, you'll get your clock cleaned. Roscoe will see to that personally." "What about his family?" I asked. "Don't you give a fuck about that?" "Roscoe and his wife have an open relationship," she said. "They pretty much do whatever they want with whomever they want." "And you want that for us?" I asked, shocked. "No," she said. "I'll do whatever I want, whenever I want, and with whomever I want. I expect you to remain faithful to me." "You're out of your mind," I said. "How long has this shit been going on?" "A few months," she said. "Not that it makes any difference. He's been over here almost every night you've been gone. I used to go out of my way to make sure everything was cleaned up afterward, but I won't be doing that anymore." "What if he gets you pregnant?" I asked. "So what if he does?" she said. "Your name will be on the birth certificate, so you'll be responsible." "No," I said. "Because I refuse to touch you as long as you're screwing him or anyone else. Has there been someone other than Roscoe?" "There's been a few," she said. "But if that's the way you want it, then I guess you'll just have to live in a sexless marriage because I don't intend to stop." "This isn't going to end well," I said. "That's where you're wrong," she said. "Look, I still love you, just not the way I used to. I need to do this. I don't know how long it'll last, but once I'm finished, I'll be yours again. Just let me have this." I shook my head. "You're crazy," I said. "How can you say you love me and then expect me to live like this?" She smirked. "Of course I love you," she said. "I just prefer the way Roscoe and his friends treat me in bed, that's all." "What's next?" I asked. "Where do you see this going?" "Roscoe's coming back Friday," she said. "That was just the day after tomorrow. You'll be expected to symbolically hand me over to him. Of course, that means you'll have to sit and listen to us put you down and belittle you, but that's just part of your new role." "My new role?" I asked. "What is that?" "You'll accept this situation from now on," she said. I looked at her, disgusted. "You're out of your mind," I said. I grabbed her ring hand and pulled off her wedding ring along with the engagement ring I gave her, the one passed down through 5 generations. It had once belonged to my 4th great-grandmother, Elizabeth, who married Grandpa Elijah a few years before the Civil War. They had 2 children before he was killed by a Confederate bullet during Sherman's March to the Sea. Elizabeth never remarried, but made sure her children and grandchildren knew about her heroic husband. His story was passed down from generation to generation, along with the engagement ring he gave her. My parents still had an old picture of Elijah and Elizabeth that was taken before he left to join the Union Army. "What are you doing?" Andrea asked. "Those are my rings." "Wrong," I said. She recoiled as I had never spoken to her like that. "That engagement ring has been in my family for well over 150 years, and I'll be damned if I let you corrupt it. You can have these back if I feel you've earned the right to wear them again." "Fine," she said, standing up. "Have it your way. Now, are you coming to bed?" "No way," I said. "I'm not going to be with you as long as you're involved with that guy. For all I know, he has AIDS. You'd better get yourself tested for STDs. Who knows what he's stuck into?" "All right," she said. "Be that way. But you'd better be on your best behavior Friday." "Is that a threat?" I asked. "Call it what you want," she said. "But I'm warning you, if you fuck it up, you'll be the one paying the price." She stomped upstairs and slammed the bedroom door, locking it behind her. I slept on the couch, and the next morning, I went up to get dressed. The master bedroom door was still locked, so I kicked it in, breaking the door jamb. It took a few kicks, but I finally managed it. Andrea sat up in bed, surprised. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Getting dressed," I said. "Unlike you, I have to wear clothes to work." I stopped my narrative long enough to take a sip of my beer and another drag off my cigarette. I was surprised that it hadn't burned all the way down by now. Justice sat silent, listening to my story. "And you spoke to an attorney today?" he asked. I nodded my head. "I did," I said. "It seems Andrea was right. The way the laws are set up, I'd get screwed, royally. In fact, the lawyer said I'd be better off financially if I just went along with what she wanted. Can you believe that shit?" He shook his head. "So what are you gonna do?" he asked quietly. "I don't know, Justice," I said. "I've never been in this kind of situation before. Part of me wants to run, but another part of me wants to strangle them both. An old friend once said that no man in the wrong can ever stand up to a fella in the right that keeps on a-coming," Justice said. "What kind of man are you, Amos?" "I'm a man in the right that's been wronged," I said. "I know you're in the right," he told me. "That's why I'm here. What do you say we bushwhack them tomorrow night, you and me together?" I looked at him. "You'd do that?" I asked. "You'd help me?" "Sure," he said. "You'd have to do the heavy lifting, but I'll be right there with you. What do you say? Are you up to it?" "Hell yeah," I said. I don't know what it was, but something about this guy gave me a feeling of confidence I hadn't had in a long time. He smiled, and we spent the next hour discussing our plan. By the time we were finished, I was ready to take on the world. "I'll see you tomorrow night, partner," he said as he got up. I watched him leave, and I felt better than I had in a long time. I put my jacket on and headed home. Sure enough, Andrea was home when I got there, and she wasn't very happy. "Where have you been?" she yelled when I walked in. "What do you care?" I asked. "You've been drinking," she said when she got close to me. "Yeah, so what?" I asked. "At least I haven't been out chasing unfaithful women." "I've been worried about you," she said. "I thought you'd go and do something stupid. I know you saw an attorney today. So, are you and your so-called friend having me followed now?" I asked. "What if I am?" she asked. "And yes, I know you were down at that bar, drinking, talking to yourself the last couple hours." Talking to myself? If she was having me watched, surely whoever was watching would have seen me with Justice. I knew the bartender saw him. Hell, he even served him a beer and took his money. "I have a lot on my mind," I said. "Tonight's the last night you can have me exclusively," she said. "So, are you going to come upstairs or what?" "No," I said. "I told you. There's no way I'm being intimate with you while you're involved with Roscoe." "Have it your way," she said before heading upstairs. Damn her, I thought. Damn her and the horse she rode in on. I put my hand in my jacket pocket and felt something. I pulled it out. It was one of Justice's cigarettes, along with a fresh match. How did that get there? I asked myself. Fuck it, I thought. I grabbed a beer and walked out to the back porch. I opened the beer, put the cigarette in my mouth, and scratched the match over my jeans the way Justice did. To my surprise, the match lit right up. I took a long drag off the cigarette, savoring the flavor. I began to relax as I sat down on the porch swing I installed last summer. The next thing I knew, Andrea was standing on the porch looking down at me. "When did you start smoking again?" she asked. "Tonight," I said. "What's it to you?" "You mean to tell me you'd rather sit out here and smoke than be intimate with your wife?" she asked angrily. I looked at her and was instantly disgusted with what I saw. The once beautiful face I knew so well had morphed into something sickening and ugly. Was that the result of the cigarette, I wondered? "I don't have a wife," I said. "Not anymore. She's dead to me." Stunned by my words, Andrea sat on the porch swing and reached out to me, but I moved away, disgusted by her very presence. "Please don't say that, Amos," she said. "I'm still your wife." Please come to bed with me. I shook my head. My wife would never have taken up with that scum-sucking maggot, I said. She would have told him to go buzz himself. But you didn't, did you? No. You spread your legs for him and let him do whatever he and his buddies wanted. And now you expect me to be okay with it? No, you're not my wife. Just someone who lives in the same house as me. You make me sick to my stomach. Now go away before I throw up. Oh my God, she said, tears falling down her cheeks. You really do hate me, don't you? You just now figuring that out? I asked. What did you think I was going to do when you hit me up with your bullshit yesterday? Celebrate? Maybe get up and do a fucking dance? You have one chance to make this all go away right now. It's up to you. It's either me and our marriage or Roscoe Dickwad. What'll it be? This was something Justice and I had worked out earlier. He suggested I give her one last chance to end it with Roscoe, primarily for my own conscience. If she accepted, Justice said he could take care of the details. I'm not sure how he could do that sort of turning back time and erasing my memories, but I trusted him. In reality, though, neither one of us realistically believed she would jump on the opportunity. For a moment, her face appeared to soften, and she looked like the woman I had fallen in love with and married. I thought she was going to take the opportunity I had presented her. What do I have to do? She asked. Call shithead right now and end it, I said. Then tell him you quit. You're a good secretary, you can find work pretty much anywhere. She pulled out her cell phone and called him, putting the call on speaker. Hey, baby, Roscoe said when he answered. We still on for tomorrow night? She said nothing for a few seconds, but as she looked up at me, I saw her face change again and knew the woman was back. She smiled, but her smile held no warmth. Yeah, we're still on, she said with an evil smirk. Good, Roscoe said. How's the husband taking it? Not good, she said, but he'll get over it, Roscoe laughed. Maybe I'd better bring some of the boys along just to keep him in line, he said. Andrea chuckled. Yeah, do that, she said. All right, see you tomorrow evening, he said before hanging up. She sneered as she looked back at me. You're in for a hot time tomorrow night, she said, and you better be on your best behavior. I nodded my head. I knew what lay ahead, and my conscience was now clear. I had given her one final chance, and she crapped all over it. I blew a cloud of smoke in her face. Her reaction reminded me of those old vampire movies where the evil creature gets exposed to sunlight. So, she said after she composed herself, you want me for one last night? This is it. After tonight, you won't get any of this ever again. I shook my head. I already told you I'm not touching you as long as you're with him, I said. In fact, if you were on fire, I wouldn't piss on you to put it out. She shrugged her shoulders. Have it your way, she said, going back inside. I slept in the guest room, putting a chair against the door to keep her out. I woke up early the next day, got dressed, and left for work without saying a word to my wife. It seemed like the day just dragged, but it finally came to an end. I knew what was going to happen tonight, and I wasn't looking forward to it at all. I got home, put my briefcase in my home office, and grabbed a beer. Andrea was making dinner, but I had no desire to eat anything she fixed. You might as well eat something, she said. You're going to need your strength tonight. Roscoe and the boys will be here in an hour or so. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and looked at what she had made. I'm not hungry, I said. Besides, how do I know you haven't poisoned my dinner? Come on, Amos, she said. You think I'd do that to you? Hell yes, I said. I put my hand in my jacket and found another cigarette and a match. I'm going on the porch for a smoke, I added before I left. She followed me outside. I don't like that you're smoking again, she said. I lit the cigarette and took a long drag. I frankly don't give a shit on what you like or don't like anymore, I said. I don't like that you're fucking around on me, but I don't have a say in that, do I? She stood defiant for a moment, then shook her head and went back inside. After she left, I went over what Justice and I had planned out, screwing up my courage for the showdown that would be happening soon. It took an hour for me to finish the cigarette. Don't ask me to explain it. Afterward, Andrea came back outside to tell me Roscoe and his buddies were here. "Go upstairs and wait for us," she said. I nodded my head and walked upstairs. I saw she had placed a chair so I could have a good view of their activity in the bed, and I noticed the video camera she had placed in one corner. I could hear them all talking downstairs, and soon I could make out two people climbing the stairs. Andrea came in first, followed by Roscoe. The big man smirked as he held out his hand. The bastard expected me to shake his hand. After he realized I wasn't going to shake it, he nodded his head and kissed Andrea deeply. "Well," he said, looking back at me, "you ready to get the show on the road?" "What? Is this where I'm supposed to act all dejected and suck you off or something?" I asked. They laughed. "Well, if that's what you want," Andrea said. "No, it's not what I want. But what I want doesn't matter, does it?" I asked. "I'm detecting a bit of hostility," Roscoe said. "Maybe the boys ought to come up and give you an attitude adjustment." "What, you too chicken to do your own dirty work?" I asked. "Let me make this simple so even a moron like you can understand." I could tell he was getting angry. Good, I thought. I pulled off my wedding ring and crammed it in his shirt pocket. Both he and Andrea looked at me, shocked. This wasn't the reaction they had expected. "You want the slimy wife?" I asked Roscoe. "You can have the slimy wife. Trust me, she's very high maintenance, and if she doesn't immediately get her way, she turns into a real bitch. Oh, she'll act all lovey-dovey for the first few years, but she'll be screwing around on you before long. Enjoy. I hope it works out better for you than me. Now, you came here to take the no-good wife. Get to it." Andrea wasn't expecting this reaction, and she looked at me, shocked. Roscoe's face turned red with rage, and he began moving toward me. He stopped just as a large dark shadow moved into the doorway. I looked and saw Justice, his hat nearly scraping the ceiling. Except for two balls of fire where his eyes should have been, he was completely dark and I could only make out his outline. "Who the fuck are you?" Roscoe asked. "And how'd you get past my boys?" "My name is Justice," the tall, shadowy man boomed. "And I'm taking you in." Out of nowhere, he produced a lariat, and with a flick of his wrist, sent it over the two surprised cheaters. As he pulled the rope tight, it erupted in flame, causing them to scream. Suddenly, the room vanished. The sun burned high in the clear blue sky, and it took a while for me to adjust to the brightness. As I did, I noticed that Justice and I were in the middle of a dusty street. A few buildings lined the street, reminding me of an old western town. There was no other life on the street, except for a horse tied to a hitching post in front of a saloon across the street. I took inventory and realized the khakis and dark polo shirt I had worn home from work were gone. I was dressed much like Justice, except for the thick poncho over my shoulders. I also noticed I had a pair of Civil War-era caps and ball revolvers in holsters on either side of my hip. The holsters were both tied down to my legs. "Where are we?" I asked Justice. "In the middle of the street," he said matter-of-factly. "I can see that," I said. "But where?" He shrugged his shoulders. "Does it really matter?" he asked. "I guess not," I said. He nodded to the saloon. "They're in there waiting for you," he said. He looked at me intently. "You ready to do what needs doing?" I took a deep breath and nodded my head. "I am," I said. He nodded his head. "Good," he said. "I'll be right there with you. Just keep calm and take it one step at a time." I nodded my head and we walked toward the saloon. When we got there, I opened the swinging doors and looked inside. Roscoe and Andrea were sitting at a round table by the far wall. A lit kerosene lamp sat in the middle of the table and each had a shot of liquor in front of them. I looked and saw Roscoe's 3 amigos standing against the wall, waiting for Roscoe's orders. All 5 of them wore period clothing, and Roscoe's 3 thugs were all armed with holstered pistols. I walked into the saloon and stood a few feet from the table. Justice entered and stood close to the door, watching our movement. Roscoe and Andrea were deep in a secret discussion, but stopped when I walked in. Roscoe sneered as he looked at me. "Who are you supposed to be? Clint fucking Eastwood?" he quipped. Andrea giggled, and the three sidekicks sneered. Roscoe turned to his three goons. "Why don't you boys take the trash out so the little lady and I can have some privacy?" They moved forward, and I saw two of them reach for the guns in their holsters. I knew I had to act quickly, so I reached down with my right hand and drew a pistol. Fanning the trigger the way I had seen in the movies, I fired 3 quick shots, one at each of Roscoe's goons. When the smoke cleared, I saw all 3 of them on the floor, their blood soaking into the wooden planks. 2 of them had managed to draw their weapons before I shot them. I aimed my pistol at Roscoe. "You killed those men," Andrea said, shocked. "That's right," I growled. "And Loverboy's next." "No, please," Roscoe begged, his hands out in front of him. "We can work this out like men. You don't have to kill us." "That's right, Amos," Andrea begged. "Please, no more. I'm sorry. Really, I am. Come on, honey, we can work this out." "You had your chance last night," I said, "and you chose this piece of shit over me." "Look, Amos, this was just supposed to be all in fun, you know," Roscoe begged. "Please don't kill me. I'm begging you." "Begging?" I asked. "You know, Justice, I think your friend was right when he said no man in the wrong can stand up to a man in the right." I noticed a large wet spot in the crotch of Roscoe's trousers and laughed. "Looks like you hitched your wagon to a real loser," I said, addressing Andrea. "Look at him. He just pissed his pants. Is that your idea of a man?" Andrea looked down at the floor, tears falling down her cheeks. "Look, Amos, you can't kill me," Roscoe pleaded. "I don't even have a gun. You can't kill an unarmed man. It just ain't right." "Actually, I can," I told him, "but I'll give you more of a chance than you were willing to give me." I pulled the second pistol out of its holster and put it on the table in front of him. "Go ahead," I said. "Pick it up." He looked at me, then at the pistol. "What?" he asked, standing halfway up. "I said, fill your hand!" I yelled. Did I really just say that? I asked myself. I remembered the line from an old movie, and it just seemed right somehow. Roscoe looked at the pistol, then slowly picked it up. "That's right," I said. "Now pull the hammer back. All the way back." He struggled with the weapon, and finally got the hammer all the way back. "Now, point it," I said, still holding my pistol on him. By now, though, I had cocked the hammer back and was ready to fire. As I watched, he lifted the pistol, his hand shaking. When the time was right, I pulled the trigger. Then I cocked the hammer and pulled the trigger 2 more times in rapid succession. The first 2 rounds hit him square in the chest, and the third went right between his eyes, blowing off the back part of his cranium. His eyes opened wide in shock from the first 2 bullets. His body slammed against the wall behind him. After a second, he fell on the edge of the table, flipping the tabletop the way I had seen in so many movies. When the tabletop flipped up, the kerosene lantern overturned, spilling the flammable liquid on the table and onto Andrea's dress. The flame from the wick ignited the kerosene, which in turn caught Andrea's dress on fire. Trapped under the edge of the heavy tabletop, she began screaming as the flames engulfed her. "Amos!" she screamed. "Help me! It burns! Please!" A few seconds later, she, Roscoe, and his 3 goons disappeared in a puff of smoke. I picked up the pistol I had given Roscoe and placed them both back in their holsters. I had to clench my fist to keep from shaking. I had never killed a man before in my life, yet I had just killed 4 men and watched as Andrea burned. I turned to Justice, who had a look of grim determination on his face. "Where did they go?" I asked. "Someplace really warm," he said. "Are they really dead?" I asked him. He nodded his head. "Yes," he said. "You do know it was either them or you. You had no choice. Is this the first time you ever killed a man?" I nodded my head. "Yeah," I said. "You ever kill anyone?" I asked him. He got a strange, faraway look in his eye. More than I care to remember, he said. But like you just now, I had no choice. It was either kill or be killed. You know, if you had hesitated, they would have killed you. Deep down, I knew he was right. The worst thing you can do right now is agonize over it or try to second-guess yourself. Just go on with your life. It'll get better with time. Trust me, he said, patting me on the shoulder. We walked outside and ended up next to the horse tied up at the hitching post. Oh, before I forget, he said, I have something to give you. He reached into a saddlebag and pulled out a small rectangular metal case and handed it to me. I looked at the tarnished case and saw the initials, EJ, engraved on the front. Turning it over, I saw an inscription that read, "To my dearest Elijah, may God keep you safe and bring you back to your one true love. Your loving wife, Elizabeth." Where did you get this? I asked. Your grandpa Elijah gave that to me just before he died, Justice said, not looking at me. How could that be? I asked myself. Elijah Jones died in the latter part of the Civil War, over 150 years ago. I looked at the back of Justice's head, and it suddenly came to me. I knew who this man really was. He'd be mighty proud if you kept that for him, Justice said, wiping a tear from his eye. I will, Grandpa, I said without thinking. Thanks for trusting me. Justice turned to me, a small smile on his face. Did something like this happen to you and Grandma Elizabeth? I asked. He nodded his head. Yeah, he said, a long time ago, in a little place very much like this. Some rustlers thought they could steal my pa's cattle and take my wife. I had to teach them the same lesson you taught them boys a while back. That was the first time I ever killed a man. Took a while to get over it. Lizzie made it out okay, though. We went back east, and I joined the army shortly afterward. You know the rest. So, what happened? I asked. How did you become Justice? That's a long story, partner, he said. I'll tell you about it one day, I promise. Will I ever see you again? I asked. He nodded his head. Count on it, son, he said. After the way you handled those fellas, I got no choice but to deputize you. Besides, you owe me a beer, he added with a smile. Yes, sir, I told him, smiling. He extended his hand and I shook it. As we shook hands, he wrapped his other arm around me and hugged me. I love you, son, he whispered, and I'm damned proud of you. I love you too, Grandpa, I said, my eyes watering. He stepped back and got up on his horse. Tell Grandma Elizabeth I said hello, I told him. He looked down at me and smiled. You just did, he said, and she says to tell you hello right back. He smiled, winked, then touched the brim of his hat. See you around, son, he said as he spurred his horse forward. I watched as he rode down the dusty road and disappeared from sight. The next thing I knew, I was back in my living room, my head reeling. I looked at myself and saw I was wearing my work clothes instead of the old Western outfit I had just a few minutes ago. I felt something in my pocket and pulled it out. It was the old cigarette case Justice, or rather, my grandpa Elijah just gave me. I opened it and saw one side was packed with his hand-rolled cigarettes, and a picture was on the other side. I looked at the picture and saw it was one of Elijah and Elizabeth. As I studied the photo carefully, I could clearly see the resemblance between Elijah and Justice. There was no question in my mind who Justice really was. I turned the photo over and saw a brief inscription scribbled on the back. To Amos, all our love, Grandpa Elijah and Grandma Elizabeth. I put the photo back, stunned. How would I explain this to my parents? I realized the truth was I couldn't say anything about any of this to anyone. For starters, no one would believe me. I realized I hadn't eaten in hours, and I was starving. Going in the kitchen, I looked at the cold meatloaf Andrea had made and tossed it down the garbage disposal. I pulled out a couple of pieces of cold leftover pizza and tossed them in the microwave. After I ate, I began packing up all of Andrea's things. By the time I was done, it was late, and I was exhausted. I slept fitfully, dreaming of men in blue and gray uniforms killing each other. I also saw Andrea burning in one scene after another. The next morning, I got up, drank a cup of coffee, and did my usual weekend chores, which included mowing the yard. Part of me missed Andrea, but a huge part of me felt relieved that I wasn't being bombarded with her non-stop bitching and cheating. By the end of the day, I had some semblance of a plan. Naturally, I couldn't tell anyone what really happened to Andrea, so I decided to visit the police the next day to file a missing persons report. I knew they wouldn't do anything unless I had waited for a reasonable amount of time. I made a note to call an attorney and find out how long I had to wait to file for a divorce based on desertion, since I knew no one would ever find Andrea. The next day, I went to the police station and filled out a missing persons report. The desk sergeant took my report, read it, and then asked me to wait a few minutes. I sat down and waited for what seemed like an eternity. Finally, a man in a suit came up to me. "Amos Jones?" he asked. I nodded my head. "I'm Detective Smith. Do you have a few minutes? I'd like to discuss your missing persons report." I followed him into a room and watched as he put out a recording device. "Mr. Jones," he said, "I noticed you said your wife left with Roscoe Jennings and 3 other men Friday night. You say you haven't seen them since, is that right?" "That's right," I said. What else could I say? "One of the 3 men with Roscoe was an undercover police officer," he said. "He's also gone missing and no one can locate him. Were you aware that your wife was having an affair with Mr. Jennings?" "I found out earlier in the week," I said. He nodded his head. "Do you own a gun?" he asked. "No, I don't," I said, which was true. I didn't own a gun, but had considered buying one. "You know, we usually look at the husband closely when something like this happens," he said. "Would you mind if we searched your house?" "No, not at all," I said. I had nothing to hide. Well, except for maybe shooting 3 men, but what was I going to say? "I shot Roscoe and your officer in an alternate dimension." "We'll be in touch, and I'd appreciate it if you remained available," he said as he started to get up. "Detective," I said, "was my wife involved in something illegal?" "That's what we were trying to find out," he said. "I can't go into the specifics, but we've been watching Mr. Jennings for quite a while." "I see," I said. He shook my hand and left. I went back home, and sure enough, several police officers came by and did a thorough search. They found nothing except for my wedding ring, which had rolled under my bed somehow. After they left, I put the bags holding Andrea's things in my car and drove to her parents' house. I told them about her cheating and informed them that she had left with her lover Friday night and hadn't returned. They were shocked when I told them. "Do you have any idea where she might be?" Andrea's mother asked. What could I say? That she's burning in hell? I shook my head instead. "No idea," I said. "But it doesn't matter. I'll be filing for divorce anyway." "I understand, son," her father, Jack, told me. "Please let us know if you hear anything. I promised I would," then left. My parents were just as devastated as Andrea's and offered to help in any way they could. But I knew there was nothing they could do. I saw an attorney on Monday about divorcing Andrea based on desertion. I explained that I had filed a missing persons report and the police were looking into it, but the lawyer told me I would have to wait a year before I could file on the grounds of desertion or abandonment. I thanked him and went back to work. Life went on for the next several months as usual. I worked, came home, ate, slept, and began the process all over again. Every so often I called the police station to check up on my missing persons case just to keep up appearances. I always got the same answer. No leads, but they're still working on it. I ended each day with a beer and a cigarette on my porch, often thinking about my grandfather. I wondered where he was and what he was doing. Strange thing, though, that cigarette case never went empty. Most days, I never smoked more than 2, but the case would be completely full in the morning. I didn't complain one bit. Seriously, have you actually checked out the price of cigarettes these days? During the first 6 months after the incident with Roscoe and Andrea, I focused on work and stayed away from women. Then one day, it happened. I bought a lottery ticket and found myself with an $85 million windfall. I was given a choice: either take a lump sum of over $57 million after taxes or accept an annual annuity over the next 30 years. After looking at how much I would get every year, I chose the annuity. I decided to quit my job since I no longer needed to work. My coworkers said they would miss me, and I knew I would miss them as well. But the truth was, I had become bored over the last 6 months. On top of that, I started to feel as though my time with Elijah had awakened something inside me. I decided to buy a place in the country and found a nice 2-story ranch house on 20 wooded acres. The place needed a bit of work, which suited me just fine. It also had a couple of outbuildings and a horse corral. Naturally, it had a good internet connection along with all the modern utilities. I moved all my stuff out and rented the old house I once shared with Andrea, with the intent to sell it once my divorce was final. Still, there was something missing. I considered buying a horse, but I knew nothing about taking care of one. Many nights I ended up at the Wrangler, a small but popular bar not too far from my new house. One night, I was at the Wrangler, nursing a beer and watching a game on the large television, when I heard a female voice. "That's an interesting case," the woman said, looking down at my cigarette case. "Mind if I look at it?" I invited her to sit down and handed it to her. She inspected it carefully, reading the inscription on the back. As she inspected the case, I inspected her. Slim, well-built, long blonde hair framing a face that could best be described as girl next door pretty. Her breasts were just the right size, not too big and not too small. "This looks like early Civil War," she said. "Where did you get this?" "Family heirloom," I said. "Belonged to my great-great-great-great-grandfather, Elijah." I opened the case and showed her the picture inside. She smiled as she looked at it. "They look like they really loved each other," she said. I nodded my head. "They did," I said. "This ought to be in a museum somewhere," she said. I shook my head. "There's a lot of sentimental value in this," I said. "It's kind of hard to explain." I extended my hand. "I'm Amos Jones, by the way." She shook my hand. "Danny," she said. "Danny Williams. It's short for Danielle." "Pretty name," I said. "Thank you, kind sir," she said, smiling. "Can I get you something?" I asked. "Sure," she said. "I'd love a beer." I motioned for the waitress and ordered us each a beer. "Mind if I smoke?" I asked her, opening the case. She shook her head. "Not at all," she said. "Would you mind sharing one with me?" I smiled and offered her a cigarette. I pulled out a match and scratched it along my jeans. I held it as she lit her cigarette. "Impressive," she said as I lit my cigarette. I smiled as I blew out the match and put it back in its box. "What kind of cigarettes are these, anyway? I've never tasted anything like them." "Special blend," I said. "Hand-rolled. You like?" "Absolutely," she said. I smiled. "You know, there's nothing quite like a smoke and a beer with a friend to end the day," I said. Lifting her beer, she smiled. I joined her in a little toast, and we spent the evening getting to know each other. It turned out Danny was a lawyer with a large firm in the city and often spent her weekends at her parents' ranch, taking care of her horses. "I've been thinking about buying a horse," I said. "That's right," she said. "You just bought the old Ackerman place. You know anything about horses?" I shook my head. "Nothing whatsoever," I told her. "But I'm a fast learner," she laughed. "Well, you know, horses require a lot of care," she said. "On average, you'd probably need to devote about 4 hours a day. But if you're serious, I have a horse I've been wanting to sell, and I'd be more than happy to help you learn." "That sounds great," I said. "So, is there a Mr. Danny somewhere?" She shook her head. "Not anymore," she said. She told me about her divorce from her ex-husband, who turned out to be a drunken cheat and an abuser. I listened to her tell her story and could see that it had affected her considerably. "What about you?" she asked. "Almost the same thing," I said. "Caught her cheating on me. She wanted me to be her cuckold, but I wouldn't have it. She's gone now, with her lover. Haven't seen her in well over 6 months. I'll be filing for divorce in a few months for abandonment." "I'm sorry to hear that," she said. We spent the rest of the evening talking, sipping beer, and dancing. She felt so good in my arms, and I felt more content than I had in months. Finally, the bar was closing, so we had to leave. "Why don't you come by in the morning and I'll introduce you to Ringo?" she asked. "Ringo?" I asked in response. "The horse. Silly," she said. "It's a date," I said. She gave me directions to her parents' place, along with her cell number. "See you in the morning," I said before she left. The next day, she introduced me to her parents, Bill and Kathy Williams. Bill was a huge man, and he nearly crushed my hand when he shook it. "So, you're the fella who bought the old Ackerman place, right?" he asked. I nodded my head. "Good people, the Ackermans," he added. "Well, I gotta go take care of some fencing. Nice to meet you, Amos." "Good to meet you, sir," I said. Danny took me out to the corral and introduced me to Ringo, a very large reddish-brown horse. I don't know what kind of a horse he was, but I was impressed by his size. Danny told me he was a very gentle animal and liked lots of attention. She showed me how to put a saddle and a bridle on him, then taught me how to ride him. I felt like I was on top of the world riding this creature. I followed Danny's instructions and was amazed at how well Ringo responded to my commands. We rode around the ranch for a couple of hours before Danny led us back to the corral, where she showed me how to groom, feed, and water him. "What do you think?" Danny asked when we left the corral. "I'm very impressed," I said. "How much do you want for him?" "Let's talk money in a few weeks," she said. "I'd prefer it if you spent time here learning how to care for him and ride him first. I just want to make sure he has a good home. Can you do that?" "Sure," I said. "Good," she said. "I'll let my dad know so he doesn't shoot you for rustling," she added, laughing. I walked her to the door and she turned to me before going inside. "I had a really good time with you this weekend," she said. "I have to leave tonight to get back to the city, but I'll be back Friday night." "Would you like to go out with me next Friday?" I asked. She smiled and kissed me on the cheek. "I'd love that," she said. "Now be good to Ringo. He's still my baby, you know." "I will," I promised, and that began the next chapter in my life. I came over every morning to take care of Ringo. Bill and the ranch hands showed me a few more tricks, and over time, we all became good friends. I enjoyed the time I spent there and began to feel a connection with the animals. I also found myself thinking less and less about Andrea. Danny came home every Friday and we dated for several weeks. On Friday, she showed up at my door, suitcase in hand. "Would you mind an overnight guest?" she asked. "Please, come in," I said. We went out for dinner and ended up in my bed. It had been a long time since I had been with a woman, and Danny said it had been a long time for her as well. That first night, we were completely consumed by passion. At one point, she took control, and I responded with intense energy, like a wild bronco. Afterward, we lay in each other's arms. She got up on one elbow and looked me in the eye. "Just so you know," she said, "I'm strictly a one-man woman and I absolutely detest cheaters. Can you handle that?" "Absolutely," I said, "and I'm strictly a one-woman man and I don't tolerate cheating of any kind." She kissed me deeply, her tongue invading my mouth. When she finished, she looked at me. "Good," she said, "because I think I'm falling in love with you." "I'm glad," I told her, "because I know I'm falling in love with you." We embraced one more time and made love before falling asleep. Dad says he's really impressed with the way you've been taking care of Ringo, she told me the next day as we drove to her parents' ranch. I enjoy it, I said. He's a beautiful animal. So, you still want to buy him? She asked. Absolutely, I said. She told me how much she wanted, and I nearly choked. Of course, I could afford it, but I had no idea horses cost that much. I knew I'd be putting out over $3,000 a year to take care of him, but that was no problem whatsoever. It's a deal, I said. Mind if he stays put for a couple of weeks while I get the corral ready? No problem, she said as we pulled into the ranch. A couple of weeks later, the corral was ready and Bill brought Ringo over. He looked at what I had done to the corral and was impressed with the new shelter I put up for the animals. Damn, son, he said. This is gonna be one spoiled horse. You got a television in here as well? He asked, laughing. Thought about it, I said, laughing with him. After we got Ringo settled in, Bill looked at me seriously. You know Danny really likes you, he said. A lot. Yes, sir, I said. And I really like her a lot, too. He nodded his head. He looked at me before speaking. I know you do, he said. I just want you to know that she's still my baby girl, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect her. Her last husband was a real bastard, and it was all I could do to keep from skinning him alive. Just promise me something. What's that? I asked. Treat her right, he said. Don't ever make my little girl cry. You do that, and you'll always be welcome in my house. I promise, Mr. Williams, I said, extending my hand. He took my hand and smiled as he shook it. I'm gonna hold you to that, son, he said. Well, I'd best be off. Talk to you soon. Danny and I continued to see each other over the next few months. In that time, our love for each other grew and blossomed into something special. We talked about everything, our hopes and dreams for the future, children, you name it. Like me, she wanted children and often talked about being able to retire to the country. She wisely never mentioned marriage, but I could tell it was on her mind. A year after the incident with Roscoe and Andrea, I contacted my lawyer. He still had the paperwork ready to file. I had spent the last year making sure I had jumped through all the legal hoops. Naturally, the authorities never found Andrea. I knew they wouldn't, and it was now considered a cold case. My lawyer told me I would be a free man in 30 days. I pulled out Grandma Elizabeth's ring and made plans to have it cleaned and sized for Danny. I intended to propose to her the weekend after the divorce became final. Life was definitely looking good. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.